Uncomfortable, right? Awkward pauses make us feel uneasy. You meet someone in a social situation and have one, and you move on and you don't come back. Well, at Appear Here, we look at empty spaces like awkward pauses. And what we're trying to do is get great ideas, put them in here, and get the conversation going again. So as David said, I'm Ross, and I'm the founder of Appear Here. And we are the leading marketplace to rent retail space. So we've got everything from high street shops to destinations like BOXPARK, Burlington Arcade, and underground stations. And what we do is match them to people with great ideas on a website that makes it as easy as booking a hotel room. So yeah, BOXPARK, Burlington Arcade, a few of the places we've got. And our whole purpose is to do one thing, which is to help people make their ideas happen. So today I want to talk to you about two things. One, the future of retail, and two, how we see pop-ups playing a part in that and in the future of the high street. So, the future. Recently I read a report by one of the big advertising agencies, and they spoke to the next generation of consumers. So it's a few thousand people between the ages of 16 and 26. And they were asking them about the future of the high street, and these three questions stood out to me as the most relevant. The first one was they asked them, did they prefer shopping online or in physical locations? And over 77% said they preferred shopping on the high street. The next question they were asked is, if you had the opportunity, where would you prefer to launch your business? Offline or online? And over half said they'd see it more successful if they launched their business on the high street. And the final question was the most interesting to me. They were asked, what would you do in that store? And the three words that came up most were learn, play, and share. And I thought that was so interesting because they didn't use one word that we all think of the most with retail, and that's buying. And somewhere along the line, I feel that retail got lost. It became all about the transaction, packing a building with as much product as possible, getting people to buy as fast as possible, and they're the retailers that have disappeared. And the retailers that are thriving, and I know Apple's the obvious answer, an example here, but they are all about the learning, the playing, and the sharing, and the transaction comes later, if at all. And the next thing people always say to us is, what about the high street versus online? Well, when you look again at companies like Apple, over 80% of their transactions have had an in-store interaction. So the stores are acting as these halos for the whole area. So to us, it's about the high street and online coming together and being one. And we hate words like Omni Channel and multi-channel, whatever channel you want to call it. To us, it's just retail. And it's about having one passion, one story, whatever the medium. Like the guys from Scott was saying before, experience to us is everything. And right now in the UK, there are more farmers markets than Tesco superstores. In the US, there are more farmers markets opening up every year than Walmarts. But in a world where experience is everything, this report also had another finding, which was that the next generation has a shorter attention span than ever before. I know I'm 22, and I, as you can see, can barely stand still. But the point is we're always busy, we've always got things to do, and we're time poor. And that's where we feel pop-up shops come in. They're about springing up unexpected locations, causing a storm, and disappearing before people have had the opportunity to be bored. They're all about the here and now, and they're about disappearing before you get the chance to be bored of the experience that's just appeared before you. They're about the moment in time. And what we're finding more and more from brands is that to be here today, they've got to be sometimes gone tomorrow. Over the last 12 months, Appear Here just in London, central London, has launched over 550 stores. And we've currently got a millennium worth of ideas waiting to launch in this city. So I want to give some examples of people that have actually made their ideas happen with our platform. And these pop-ups fit into these four areas. So the first one is about testing the market. And this is a guy called Ed who opened up a market stall with us in Old Street Station. He originally took this market stall for 2 weeks, didn't have enough money to get it any longer, and every day at lunchtime he was selling out. And 7 weeks later, he came back on the platform. He's tried to book another 6 market stalls. He's got a long-term store in Soho, and he's launching a new flagship shop here in January in Canary Wharf. So we're witnessing these tiny brands being incubated because they've got access to great locations and spaces they would have never had access to. And weeks later, in January, he'll be the biggest pressed juice company in London with the amount of stores he'll have. The second one's about connecting to a moment. And this, to us, is about brands attaching themselves to something far greater than they are. So this was Jamie Oliver, who launched his cocktail week with us. And he launched his drinks tube in one of our locations. And one single store that he did had over 70 million tweets. The third one to us is about creating experience. Brands looking at shops as 3D billboards. Homeland just brought out one of their new DVDs. Rather than opening up, having billboards across London, they opened up stores with us across the city where they had ex-CIA operatives doing lie detector tests on members of the public and celebrities. Which one would interest you more? And the final one is what excites me most, and it's about online brands coming offline and building real-world relationships. At Appear here, our biggest growth area from tenants is online retailers opening up physical stores for the very first time. Surf Dome recently opened up a shop with us, and they found that not only did their site traffic increase in the area, but their average time of duration on the site also increased. And not only did that increase, but the average cart size per user in London increased during the period of their store. This was one little pop-up. And what they also found out is their CPA, their cost per acquisition, and this happens time and time again, is more scalable and more cost-effective doing a physical store than doing online Google AdWords. So when everyone talks about the internet killing the high street, we believe it's going to save it. The final thing I want to talk to you guys about is landlords. So if that's the case for brands, we feel that landlords have to become media owners. They should be judging their square footage not on price per sales, but price per audience member. I want to give you an example of a landlord that we think's done this really well, and that's TfL, who we've been working with. They're one of the biggest landlords in London, surprisingly. So we set out with them to reinvent retail in the underground, and we recognized that they had this incredible audience. 1 billion journeys happen on the underground just in London. I like to look at these things in X Factor finals, so it's the equivalent of giving a retailer an audience of 103 X Factor finals. So we decided we didn't want what you see in most stations and sort of uninteresting brands. What we wanted to do is bring really interesting new ideas. So we took this station, we worked on reinventing it, we looked at the audience, you've got the fastest growing tech cluster in Europe, you've got these amazing creative industries, and then you've got the city banking just on the fringes. This to us was the station of early adopters. So we worked on a rebrand and how we wanted the station to look, and this was our vision piece, and in May we launched. So far, this one station has had over 100 ideas launch, from market stalls doing cereal, to independent bike brands. This guy had his best sales day during the tube strikes, to Moleskine. And not only have we got people like Monocle listing it in their top 10 transport innovations, and Evening Standard saying, how it's gone from somewhere you rushed through to now the hotspot, we've generated TfL in that one station 100% rent increase. We've generated some retail units a 400% rent increase. And the way we've done that is not only giving great experiences to the passers-by, increasing dwell time, but proving that their retail space was not about sales, it was about media. So what you've seen there, hundreds of ideas launching, people like Transport for London completely changing the way that they manage their locations. We don't think the high street's changing. To us, it's already changed. And to be part of the future, we believe that people have to be able to tell great stories no matter what the medium is. And they have to, most of all, get people talking. So you might think, what the hell's Claridge's got to do with retail? But I want to share something I read in an article about 2 weeks ago. And this was the guy who manages Claridge's. And he was talking about why he felt hotels like Claridge's were more relevant today than ever before. And this is what he said. People always wanted to get together in beautiful environments and connect and talk and live and create memories. People these days have everything. And every year, you can buy more and more if you have the money to buy it. But what you can't buy is memories and real experiences. And that's why they come to hotels like these. I really believe people these days are curating their lives. They are collecting very select elements in their life, and that's what they want to experience, and that's what they want to take away. And he was saying that that's why hotels like Claridge's matter today. And I believe that that whole point about curating your lives and selecting those memories is why high streets are more relevant today than ever before. So whether you're a couple of young guys, a guy like Ed with a new pressed juice brand, an international brand going to new cities, or a landlord that wants to do things differently and change their place into a destination, we feel that people today have to curate moments, create memories, and especially if they're a landlord, get rid of these. Thank you very much.
Ross, I represent a paper magazine. We do other things. What should Wired be doing in this pop-up world?
Well, we've got a number of magazines that have actually been opening stores with us, but I think that Wired should be clearly taking Old Street Station, one of the Appear Here spaces, taking every single retail space and filling it with the hottest London startups, and then creating a physical environment where you can read what you read in the magazine and then actually experience it for life.
Give me the page, I'll sign.
Good. Deal.
So what did you do before you were 22?
I left school about 16. Opened a shop, actually, which led this idea called Rock and Roll, which Ogilvy and a few people helped to support. I think, actually, the lady that originally gave us a few £100s to set up that store's in the audience, because I'd noticed her earlier. But what we did is we launched the shops for the Queen's Diamond Jubilee 10 days before. So going back to curating a moment, wanted to attach this idea to something far greater than we were. And we got a call from Buckingham Palace during the store. Sadly, it wasn't for the Queen wanting to buy T-shirts. It was to say the T-shirts were banned. And I did what anyone in here would do with the risk of being sent to the tower and hid all the T-shirts under the stairs. And it ended up becoming quite a big buzz. And I think we realized then how important a great story was. And a few days after that store, got a call from one of the big US retailers who wanted to get a shop for the Olympics. And at that moment, it was sort of like, well, if you've got these little guys that are having this problem, and we had that problem, and you've got these huge brands, then it was something worth sort of focusing on.
If you recognize him, you're not quite sure where, from the Wired hottest 100 startups in Europe.
Yeah, thank you.
Prancing about. Thank you very much, Ross.
Cheers, thanks, Dick. Cheers.